It's the Bulls Podcast, episode 17.
Hey, Chicago Bulls fans! It's time for your Bulls Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marcus Couch and Wise Black.
Welcome to the Bulls Podcast, coming to you from bullspodcast.com. This is where we'll be bringing you the latest news, reviews, rants, rumors, and opinions on the players, coaches, and front office of the Chicago Bulls. Today, we've got actually a guest co-host because Wise couldn't make it. So we are joined by one of the top Chicago sports YouTubers out there, avid Bulls fan, friend of the show. Hello to Mr. Rusty Buckets.
Hello.
It's nice to have you on the show. This week we got a lot in store for you, including a post-game wrap-up of the Bulls versus the Phoenix Suns. Got a little bit of an injury update. Unfortunately, it looks like Denzel is going to be out for the season, and we'll have a quick back-and-forth discussion on the state of the Bulls. And we'll do that right after this.
Bulls fans, remember to follow the show on social media at Bulls Podcast and at bullspodcast.com.
This is going to be a quick post-game wrap-up of the Bulls versus the Phoenix Suns. They took on Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and the Suns on Wednesday night. Bulls actually won this game with a score of 124-116. Pretty decent night. Zach LaVine led all scorers with 29 points. He's on a pretty good run, and it looks like that Most Improved Player award might be his for the taking. Jabari Parker also actually played a pretty decent game. He had 20 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, and he almost got into triple-double territory, which would be a welcome first for him, at least this season. All in all, really good win for the Bulls, who've been on a kind of a losing streak lately, and that's not surprising given the competition that they've faced in the last couple of games. Most notable from Phoenix, the presence of DeAndre Ayton, who, man, that guy looks like a beast. Wouldn't you say, Rusty? I mean, that guy's got a pretty good future. He's got a good future, and unfortunately, that was not one that we could have gotten in the draft. So what was your overall reaction to the game and performance of DeAndre
similar
Ayton?
to you, the fact that we won surprised me. I loved how your tone of voice went up when you said, "Oh, we won." I mean, I wasn't surprised that we won because we're playing the Phoenix Suns, but I'm glad that Zach LaVine finally had a good shooting night because he had like 3 back-to-back poor shooting performances, which I was afraid was actually going to be a detriment to his Most Improved Player award, but hopefully he's back on track after this game. And yeah, it's definitely a good win versus another young rebuilding team.
Yeah, I think Zach actually was sick. He had a cold or something happened to him so that he was out. I know after the last or the one before this, they did a post-game interview and he was just coughing his brains out after the game. So I think it was just a case that he was sick, that he had a poor performance, maybe got winded a little too, a little too much. Maybe he had a little bout of bronchitis or whatever.
Yeah, he also has a lot of a load to carry for such a young player already.
Yeah,
which doesn't help.
Definitely. So on the other side, Devin Booker put up 23 points, 6 assists. Not too braggadocious in terms of his output. That's pretty much expected from Devin Booker.
I would have expected more considering who's guarding him.
Well, I don't know. It just seemed like one of those games where it all kind of came together. I was really nervous at the end. It looked like the Bulls might actually lose this one, but a couple lucky breaks had it going our way. Kind of an interesting moment was when Ryan Arcidiacono actually went after a ball that was headed out of bounds, jumped into the third row. It looks like he had a half a beer spilled on him, but he came back and played pretty well. So
I mean, that's what Ryan does.
Yeah, and he landed in the padded, nice $3,000 a ticket seats. So no harm, no foul there. Let's talk about some other things going on with the Bulls. Injury updates. It's announced that Denzel Valentine is actually going to miss the entire rest of the season. He's going to get surgery later next week. He's been scheduled for a full ankle restoration surgery Looks like he might get a plate or two in there. Maybe some spit, grease, and glue. Who knows what they're going to do there. But they've indicated that this is exactly what the doctors have prescribed in order for him to get back to NBA levels and levels of play. He's had ankle issues, according to him, ever since he entered the league. So he's looking forward to getting a 100% new ankle when he returns to the league next season. Whether that's with Chicago, I don't know. I know that we picked up his option, but you never know what could happen. So hopefully he heals up quick and he's back to playing form for the season opener. What's your impressions of Denzel in terms of a player that we should keep?
I think I'm the one Bulls fan in the world that actually likes Denzel Valentine. I was really disappointed to hear that he was out for the rest of the season because I really wanted him to prove all of his doubters wrong. You can't really do that when you're on the sidelines. So I'm going to have to keep defending him until next season. I think Bulls fans look at the fact that he was drafted number 14 and are like, well, he's not a lottery player, which is true, but that doesn't mean he can't provide, spacing, which he does already at a borderline elite level, and he's a solid ball handler, not obviously a main ball handler that you'd want, but, he can create a little bit for himself and others. Like, he's just a solid player, which, having solid, you don't need everyone to be a star, which I feel like people are just like, that's a lottery pick, so they expected more from him, but I'm still on the Denzel Valentine train, even though I'd say most people probably hopped off of it a while ago.
Yeah, I don't mind him on the team. I think he's a good defender, actually. That
he had a lot of length.
We sorely missed that this year in terms of defense. I think there's a couple of games that if we would have had Denzel Valentine, we probably would have won those games. But we'll see. We've got a whole lot of time left until Denzel hits the court again. Chandler Hutchison actually missed the Phoenix game. He had back spasms, but it looks like it's just a short-term thing. He's already getting therapy for it, and it's nothing that'll keep him out of any games.
Wasn't that a thing he had in college, was back issues?
Maybe, but these pro trainers will probably work that out.
Yeah.
Get a TENS unit on his back or something like that. I'm sure they can work that out. Let's see. Lauri Markkanen and Chris Dunn have both been working out and hitting non-contact portions of practice now. So it looks like it'll be another 2 weeks or so before we see both of them. There's actually a rumbling that Lauri will be playing with the Windy City Bulls G League team by late next week and get ready to make his comeback. So if you're in the Chicago area, go get those Windy City Bulls tickets. You might get a little surprise in next week's games. I'm sure that there's plenty available. And plus, the Windy City Bulls are actually a really fun team to watch this year. I've caught a couple of the games. And Raleigh Alkins, who's from Arizona, actually is having a pretty killer season so far with the Windy City Bulls. And that's going to be really great to see him play with the actual Bulls, hopefully.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd love to see them call him up.
Yeah, I think they're waiting until Lowry comes back because he and Lowry had this Savage Life meme going on when they were both playing in Arizona, and that's Lowry's guy. So I'm sure he's going to want to play with him at some point this year. But, that G League two-way contract that the Bulls gave him, that's only good for 45 games. So I think we're just going to wait it out until halfway through the season and then maybe bring him up. We'll see. Bobby Portis, I've been told that we will be lucky to see Bobby Portis back by Christmas. His injury's not healing up as fast as Chris Dunn's is, and that's pretty bad for Bobby. I mean, I don't mean that from a perspective of not having his injury healing up in time, but it's a contract year for him, and he's going to work a lot harder once he comes back. He's going to have to get a decent contract for some team or our team next season. Now, selfishly as a Bull, maybe that's something that we want because then he'll be cheaper
contract.
$8 to $10 million range, maybe. Who knows? But it's a huge risk when you re-injure yourself because you're going to come back and maybe not play as hard because you're afraid you're going to injure yourself again, or you're going to play a lot harder than you should, knowing that you've got some lost ground to make up for, and you might hurt yourself again. So either way, Bobby's got an uphill climb. That knee's got to withstand the rest of the season when he comes back. Hopefully it does. Hopefully everything works out great. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be that sixth man of the year that we were all hoping that
not
year would
up
be
games
for Bobby. Yeah. And, I don't think that we're even going to make the playoffs like Bobby predicted as well. So, I don't know. What's your take on Bobby in terms of coming back from this injury and the contract situation with Bobby in general?
I'll tell you what, with him, as much as I would hate to see it, I would 100% understand Bobby leaving because he has the talent to be a starting power forward in the NBA or even center here and there. So this could be very much like a Terry Rozier on the Celtics situation, which is obviously, maybe not obviously, but it sounds like he wants to be on the team, but also like you're not going to sacrifice money and your role with the team just because you like where you're at, the roster that you're on and that kind of thing. So that's my fear with him is that he's thinking, I'm a starting caliber player, like his offensive game, he could average 20 on the right team. I do think the Bulls team limits him, but obviously I also love his role here. So I would understand if he left. I hope he doesn't. As far as how much we should/would pay him, I wouldn't go over $16 million, but under that you might have to pay a little bit more than you'd like. But I do think it's worth it in the long run to have a sixth man that you can rely on for years to come.
That's generous with that 16. My ceiling for that was 12. I didn't think maybe 14, but 16. Ooh. So
here's the thing, though. Like, you can give him 12 and then spend $4 million on a Justin Holiday, or you can have him. Like, I could totally pass on like a backup, like 10th man 3-and-D player in exchange for keeping him. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To invest that money there.
Isn't that weird that we get these forwards like a Taj Gibson, like a Bobby Portis that end up being six men and never start? I
kind of feel bad
weird.
for him.
We have this weird dichotomy within the Bulls organization that we have these six-man type guys that we just kind of leave around and then they go to other teams and start.
I would even say right now that Laurie and Bobby are probably close to equally talented, but by the time, a year down the line, maybe even this year, if the muscle being added to his game will make a big difference. Obviously, Laurie is the long term going to be a much better player, but as of right now, I think the skill's similar.
Well, maybe. I don't think Bobby's got as much range in his shot.
Well, obviously, yeah, but overall, I mean,
yeah. We'll see. I mean, we'll definitely see. We haven't seen the new Lowry marketing as far as the bulk.
Yeah, I'm interested as hell to see that. Like, what the additional muscle, which was, his strength was his biggest issue in his rookie year, and the fact that how many pounds of muscle did they say that he added? I forgot.
20.
No, good Lord. Yeah, that'll definitely help in the post. And he won't have Jerian Grant this year refusing to pass it to him in the post when he has a mismatch, which I completely believe shaved off about 3 to 4 points per game off of Laurie's stats. No joke, because there were so many times last year where Grant dribbled the hell out of the ball, Laurie had a point guard on him, and Grant just passed it to like Denzel Valentine.
Right. And it's got to be, you got to have Chris Dunn back when this happens, because the dynamic of Dunn to Marketing last year was the most dynamic, right? I mean,
I will say, though, I am very interested in Chris Dunn's fit with LaVine now, because last year I think LaVine tried to play more off ball because he knew Chris Dunn, needed the ball to be successful. But I think now that LaVine's had the ball to himself for so long, he might not be that happy giving it up. And, having Chris Dunn play off ball more, I don't know how that fit's going to work. They're both talented, but I'm curious how those two are actually going to fit together now, because I think the dynamic of the Bulls offense has changed a good bit.
It has, but still understand. I mean, the coach is going to still run his offense, right? So it's not always going to be ISO ball with Zach, even, and Zach might find it more beneficial actually to have Dunn running more of a traditional point role than him having to do it in terms of rim rocking and the things that Lowry's going to open up when he comes back too. So I know it's going to be like a whole different team when Lowry and Dunn return into the lineup. I don't think Bobby has as much presence in terms of how this offense runs, but
he just makes sure the flow keeps going.
Right. The one guy that we haven't mentioned here is, somebody we'll talk about in the next segment, and that's Jabari Parker.
Ugh.
Obviously, it doesn't make a difference either way. If he's coming off the bench or he's taking this role. Yeah, it will. It will actually.
I don't know if you've seen his plus minus, but
yeah. Oh yeah. And so when Portis comes back, that's also going to be interesting in terms of if Portis is going to get that starting role like he did early on in the season, and Jabari coming off the bench, or how that role is going to fit. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic when all these guys heal up and start to get some playing time again. All right, so we are going to take a quick break and end this discussion with something about, the state of the Bulls, which is, where are we at? Is it time to tank? And what kind of guys can we get in terms of free agents next season? We'll talk about that right after this. All right, so let's have a quick discussion, Rusty and I, regarding the state of the Bulls. Is it time to tank? I think Garpax have probably been watching some Duke basketball, as I have all season. And it's my personal opinion that it's actually time to put this submarine in the water and for this team to hit the tank button. Once again, we're in a postseason fight with the Cavs, but this time it's to see who can suck the most and hit the bottom first. We want to get that coveted number 1 pick to grab either Zion or RJ. And it's time us as fans get buckled in and prepared to make that race down to the muck, the bottom, the mud, whatever it happens to be. We need to get down there, get dirty, and tank so that we can stay in the hunt to get one of those picks. Or do you think we should actually go for it, try and stay competitive, and attract some free agent talent? Rusty, what do you think?
Here's the thing. I was on the fence as to, for a part of the time, I was on the let's make the playoffs train. But also I was like, I think we need one more big time guy to be a contender in the long term. So I was like debating short term versus long term there. But as for how I felt about tanking versus trying to win, I think the universe kind of made that decision for me by taking out 4 out of our top most important players.
True.
I don't know how much of that is our decision at this point. By the time, everyone comes back, I think we could also have some chemistry issues just because of things being mixed up within the offense and stuff like that. At this point, I think it's going to be too much of an uphill battle to try to make the playoffs. So, why fight to get, a number 10 pick when you can just tank and get number 1 pick and draft RJ Barrett?
Yeah, you think RJ's going 1 over Zion?
I think Zion has obviously been the one that people are talking about more. But I think in NBA front offices and what I want, I think RJ and Zion are almost like equally talented. But for the Bulls especially, I'm going to take a guy like RJ who is not only crazy athletic, but also has very defined skill already. Mm-hmm. Not saying Zion is unskilled, but he relies on his athletic ability way more than RJ Barrett does. And for the Bulls specifically, I think RJ is, he's going to be a good playmaker. He's going to be a guy who can be a focal point of the offense. And most importantly, RJ is going to be a small forward in the NBA. I don't see Zion Williamson playing small forward unless he shaves down his weight. I realize it's muscle weight, but he's still too big for a small forward, and his jump shot is nowhere near where I'd want it to be for him to be playing the 3.
True. Now, I'll give you my rationale for Zion. Because a guy like that has national attention already. more than any college player that we've seen, at least a freshman player, in a long, long time. So
that's fair.
That attention is then going to carry over to Chicago. You're going to get a lot more fans. You're going to get a lot more nationally televised.
So the front office would take him from a money perspective rather than, who's a better fit. I could see that.
I would definitely do it. I mean, you're going to have a lot more excitement when it comes to the game just because you've got a guy like this on your roster that can just light it up at any time. I am sort of with Stephen A. Smith on the one end, which is the Cavs would be the worst place for Zion to go.
Oh, God. Another LeBron situation.
Yeah, exactly. Because that
his
expectation.
Stranded on that desolate franchise.
Yeah, the expectation of Zion is going to be through the roof. They're going to think that he is the second coming of LeBron, which I don't agree with Steve Kerr. I don't think that he's anywhere near that.
Oh, what about Stephon Marbury, who said that he's already currently better than LeBron?
Oh, please. Please. So, I don't know. I do think that we would, either way, if we got a guy like RJ, if we got a guy like Zion, I think that the Bulls would be exponentially better. Our chemistry would be through the roof. I think guys like Zach LaVine would live out his contract playing with some pretty decent guys. And I think that we'd have a lot more fun as Bulls fans watching these games. So I'm hoping that we can get into either that one or two situations.
I mean, it's not like RJ Barrett's not a fun player to watch.
Oh, gosh. I mean, the whole,
Just that Zion is so ridiculous.
It's flash. It's the flash factor, right?
When you watch RJ Barrett, you're like, that's a basketball player. When you watch Zion Williamson, you're like, that is an alien from another planet.
I'm due for an alien.
Yeah.
I'm due for something like that. Another unicorn.
If he slimmed down and his jump shot got to league average, then yeah, I definitely. If he can do that, after developing for a few years, then yeah. But my concern is that he's a 4 in the NBA, and obviously don't want to sacrifice Lauri Markkanen. So he's going to be forced to play the 3. It could be in a way, it could be similar to Jabari having to play the 3 next to Markkanen. It hasn't happened yet because of injury, but I guarantee it's going to be a disaster.
It will. So let's move along here to another topic, which is free agents. Who do we want on this team next year? And it's kind of sucks to have to think about this with less than 20 games played in the season. We all know, as we mentioned, Jabari Parker, his experiment has been a total failure for the Bulls. So money-wise, we're looking at the $20 million from Jabari's contract. O'Meara seeks $12 million. Robin Lopez has $14.5 million on there. So it looks like we're in a really great position to bring in not one, but possibly 2 max contract players to our roster next year. Now, I watched your recent video. You said that Kevin Durant would actually be smart to come to the Chicago Bulls to kind of cement his legacy with a championship of his own. So he actually kind of had to work for one on his own so that he can, let people know, hey, I didn't just show up to collect rings in Golden State, even though that's kind of the assumption that we've all had. And heck, who knows, we might even be able to lure Klay Thompson to come along with him, or one or the other. What's your opinion? Do you think we could get either one of those 2 guys?
I got a lot of heat in the comment section for being too biased on that one. This, as far as bringing Klay along with him, there's no basis, there's no reason for me to believe this. Nothing has come out to make it seem that way. But for whatever reason, I just have this weird feeling that Klay Thompson doesn't like Kevin Durant. And I have no reason to believe that, but I just do. So for that completely irrational reason, I don't think Klay would come along with him.
You think KD showed up and just was like the new cool kid from out of town?
I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. I really have no basis for that, but it's just how I feel about it. So obviously I'd want Kevin Durant to come to the Bulls. I also had some Bulls in the comment section of that video or some Bulls fans saying that they wouldn't want Durant because he's a snake, but I feel like their feelings on that would immediately change as soon as that contract is inked. Bulls fans got over Dennis Rodman. They didn't like him because he was one of the bad boys, but he signed and now everyone loves him. So
right.
I don't agree with that line of thinking at all. I'm not a big fan of him right now, but if he's wearing Bulls red, I'll be his biggest fan.
Oh, yeah. And another one that people have mentioned is Kyrie. That he could be lured away from Boston despite that public affirmation that he made in the preseason that he wants to stay in Boston, especially if that team can't get past the first or second round of the playoffs. As we all recall, last season, the Celtics darn near went to the finals without Gordon Hayward, without Kyrie Irving. So there is a chance that he'll sign somewhere else, and there's a chance also that this team might not sign him. So what do you think about that situation?
Are you along with those others? Because I'd like to know before I insult you.
I have no opinion, and by the way, I don't work for the Bulls front office, so I think
that's absolute lunacy. No, I'm not even going to entertain that. But Kyrie is not leaving, and if he did, I don't think he's leaving for the Bulls. I understand Kevin Durant having motivations to come to a team like Chicago, but I don't think Kyrie has those same motivations.
Yeah, you think he's going to ring chase?
Kyrie?
Yeah.
I think he's going to stay in Boston because he knows he's landed in probably the best situation any player could land in. And I understand that they've struggled this year. And I'd say even this year in the playoffs are probably going to be a bit of a disappointment. But I do think they'll eventually figure that thing out, especially when Jaylen Brown stops playing like absolute garbage and Gordon Hayward is Gordon Hayward again. But once they figure everything out, which I don't think people have given them enough time to already jump to conclusions, I don't think Kyrie is even thinking about going anywhere else outside of Boston.
Yeah, I knew that it would take Hayward a long time to actually recover from that injury. I know this because I've had that same injury that he's had, which is gruesome. Yeah. My foot was twisted the other way.
Long, but yeah.
Yeah, I had the exact same injury that he did, and got the metal rods and the whole thing that he did. And it took a while, to get my jump back, too.
My thought process with Hayward and recovering with the injury was he was never a player who relied on athleticism, so I didn't think it would hold him back as much. Because, he's not a crazy leaper, he's not fast or anything. Like, he's always been a guy who relied on his skill. So I figured, injury doesn't affect your skill that much as it does affect your athleticism. So I didn't think it would have as big of an impact as it actually has for him, unfortunately.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll tell you that injury does is you get kind of pirate peg leg syndrome. It takes a good 10-15 minutes. You're afraid you're going to
snap your leg every...
No, not that. It's not that. It's a numbing thing. It's like that your leg gets a little more numb than usual. And it takes a good 10-15 minutes of actually running up and down before that goes away. And
I can't even imagine that injury happening to me, just looking down and seeing my foot turn the wrong way.
It's pretty gnarly.
I actually got to see his first game post-injury because I went to the first Celtics preseason game of the year. So I got to see him go on the court for the first time since the injury. It was pretty neat.
Cool. All right. Well, it's been a lively discussion, and I definitely, we're going to keep continuing on this podcast, at least in terms of the free agent watch, some of the guys that we think that we can get. And we might bring the ESPN trade machine game back to the show already, which we had so much fun with in the preseason. I think it might be about that time. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll close it out right after this. And we want to thank you, Rusty Buckets, for helping me to co-host the show tonight. And all you fans out there, you can find Rusty over at his YouTube channel. I left a link to that in the show notes. And you can also follow Rusty on Twitter at RustyBuckets321. Make sure you go to bullspodcast.com. I got links to all of that and more. So, Rusty, thank you so much. And what do you got going on the YouTube channel lately? What's your plans for the near future with it?
I'm trying to finish up a documentary video type thing that I'm doing, but I've had to unfortunately upload a lot more than I want to due to recent struggles, but hopefully I'll get back on that soon.
Good deal. Well, hey man, it's been a pleasure to have you. I'm sorry that Wise couldn't join us today. It's kind of the holiday pre-Thanksgiving.
Especially because he's the one who wanted to get me on, so I thought that'd be...
Well, we'll get you back. We'll get you back again. This is just kind of the appetizer. We'll do the full roundtable, the full show coming up, but definitely didn't want to leave you hanging today. And we thank you a lot for joining us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Until next time, everybody, thank you for listening. Go Bulls.
Hey, Bulls fans. This is your Bulls championship announcer, Ray Clay, saying so long, everybody. Go Bulls.